My name's Reti and I hail from up north in a little place called Te Ngaire. It's on the east coast, and that's on my dad's side. On my mum's side, I come from a little town called Tūrangi, which is where I grew up. And I guess you could say that's my stomping ground, because I know all the places down there, grew up with all of those aunties and uncles, and have a really strong connection to that side of my family. The number one influence when it comes to taonga pūoro is my mother, who was working very hard in the Waikato as a instrumentalist, a Maori musician and songwriter. And she had been doing that my whole life. And so growing up with that influence had already set me up to feel like Maori taonga pūoro are real instruments to play. And the reason why I say this is because I think as taonga pūoro goes through its resurgence, a lot of people who I meet who are learning about taonga pūoro are a little bit unsure and uncertain about tikanga and technique and how to approach taonga pūoro in a respectful way. And this can create a little bit of a gap between musician and their accessibility to taonga pūoro. I didn't have that at all. See, these taonga pūoro I had been brought up with were not sacred taonga to ensure we don't play incorrectly. No, they were just like that. They were instruments that needed to be played, and you pick up and you play them. When Mum passed, I inherited all of her instruments, as well as instruments of some of her friends. And for a good 2 years, I had experimented with different things, different combinations of taonga. So I dived into a little bit of looping. And then I started to include taonga pūoro in the Knights of the Dub Table, which was the band that I was actively touring at that time. And I then could see, okay, there's a lot of space for taonga pūoro in the music that I was producing at the time. And a year went by, I was gigging a lot, and there were two brothers that really stood out to me as fresh songwriters and really just amazing people. I think that goes a long way in a band, is you have to have the right people around you. There has to be a kinship, I guess, a sense of whānau and love. And I think for the project that I was trying to pursue, which is now Ia, it needed a lot of aroha, because we did not know what we were going to be doing. And we started composing, and honestly we composed for a year and a half, and it was hard. A lot of trials and tribulations, a lot of figuring out how to compose waiata, both lyrically and musically, but more challenging from the music end. Some of the challenges we faced were just the pure fact that taonga are not tuned to A440 standard tuning, which is what our basses are tuned to, our guitars, our pianos, they're all tuned to this. That's why they're so harmonious. But taonga pūoro are not. And so I had to challenge myself to practice the art of tuning. So taking, for example, a nguru like this, and then listening to, and then identifying, okay, where is that sitting in the musical spectrum, and how in tune or out of tune is it to standard A440, and then figuring out how to use my own embouchure and playing technique to adjust the tuning, or just change the tuning of the instruments. Like our first song that we released, it uses this pongaihu, a nose-blown flute, and you just can't tune it. There's just no way to tune that instrument. So we thought, okay, every other instrument's got to tune down. So that's what we did. And I've got a piano part in there, so I detuned the piano. I think it was 26 cents, which is I believe there's 100 cents in between every semitone, so this was out by 26 cents, which is enough to make the person think, oh, that's out. But we did that, and we were able to compose a full waiata with that, and it brings that familiarity of music that we all understand today, which is to be in tune. So once we overcame that hurdle, which took about a year, we were away, and we were able to compose waiata using almost every instrument in my collection, ranging from flutes, from nguru, like this, to kōauau, like this albatross kōauau, all the way across to karanga weka, various hue, trumpets like pūmoana or pūtātara, pūkaya. Haven't had many opportunities to use pūkaya, but plenty of songs to be written.
Will the rivers of war bring you home to me patiently? My heart awaits. Oh,
Vengeance shall abound. My heart longs for you. Swiftly I return to your arms. My solace is in you.
When I first pitched the idea to Moitu and Turoa about forming this band, I also pitched to them the fact that we may never gig, and that this project isn't going to go to festivals. So our first idea was to capture in a studio, have a guy roving and everything's live. Then our second idea was to go into a forest, and we did that on our second single, Ororuarangi. And there we practiced the skill of live capture in an interesting environment.
She picked up the mantle of a heavy task. Hiki nare koe te manu katau maha. She picked up the mantle of a heavy task. E honore te oro takahi, e raku tarai waka whare pā, pūoro pūtori no.
And so we learnt the skill of live capture in interesting environments at that shoot. And the next shoot, we kind of came together, had wānanga, had hui, And we were able to come up with the concept of being on a waka. So we pitched that to my uncle Hoturua Barclay Kerr, who runs Te Toki Voyaging Trust alongside a lot of his whānau. At the time that we were wanting to film, COVID hit us. And so we lost that opportunity. And then I think it was like 6 months later, it was just at the end of summer or just before summer, I can't remember. That's when we thought, now's the time. But all the wakas had sailed up to Auckland at this point. So we had to move location. So we thought, okay, well, what if we take the waka out into maybe past Rangitoto somewhere and find a little island and park up in somewhere and shoot. And that sucked. That was the worst idea ever, because if you've ever been on any vessel and you're anchored, you are being pushed around in every direction. Just wherever the wind's going to come from, that's where your waka's going to be pushed. And so we had wind just gusting from all directions. I guess that's a gale wind, right? And the captain, he decided, look, we need to set sail. Because when you're sailing, you're moving at the exact same speed as the waka. And so we did. Full sail, set it all up. We were heading straight towards Little Barrier. And say about an hour into that sail, the wind disappeared. The bumps were slow and long, so they weren't short, choppy bumps. So that was pretty ideal. We also had a small advantage, which is that the wakahaurua have a wind turbine. They also have turbines that they put into the water that have like the ability to charge their batteries, and they also have solar panels, and the batteries and the power storage they have is insane. So we were able to power my laptop, Turo's SPD. We had used... Have you ever heard of a silent disco? So we hire a bunch of silent disco headphones. So whatever crew we have all have their own headphones, and they could be locked into the performance. And it's a way of communicating as well, so that when... for example, the waka crew knew it was time to record, they could hear the dialogue because we were all talking into the mics and things. And so we were able to coordinate to get the crew downstairs, locked away in their little cabins. Oh, shout out to the whānau, they were so awesome. And there was 5 crew that day, plus a photographer, plus 2 camera operators. So it was a full waka. And we managed to pull it off. A lot of people don't think that is a live performance. A lot of people think that we actually pre-recorded that and just slapped it on, but no, that was all live. I see taonga pūoro growing in the near future, and I hope that it continues to grow. And it's about us, the musicians at the moment, and our efforts that will play a key role in the growth of taonga pūoro in Aotearoa music, no matter the genre. And I think of like this whānau here, the Haumanu Collective, which is a collective of some of the strongest, all of the strongest taonga pūoro practitioners in Aotearoa at the moment. And the space that they're working in is the musical space as well as the educational space, and exposing taonga pūoro to our next generation of musicians. And they, I think, Haumanu is going to be releasing an album which will incorporate musicians from Aotearoa as well as the practitioners within that collective. And I think within Haumanu's hands, taonga pūoro is pretty safe. And then, of course, knowing that through their efforts, bands like Ia are gonna have a strong foundation to grow upon. And so I hope that there are more people who are thinking of the bigger picture when it comes to taonga pūoro and grow taonga pūoro in many different spaces. I think the most obvious space is the musical space. But see, taonga pūoro has many different applications, from rongoā all the way... Oh, and it's actually been used in a meditation program, you know, and meditation for us, you know, our Māori and our wairua, it comes through meditation and is developed through meditation, and taonga pūoro is moving into that space. So I hope that with all of these people pushing and growing taonga pūoro, that it becomes... I don't want to use this word normalized, and I think the reason why is because the connotations that come with it are often associated with Western normalization. Practicing taonga pūoro means that you actually have to pick it up, you have to play it. Normalizing it, well, you can just hear it on the radio and it's normalized, right? And that's cool too. I would love to hear amazing melodies from our taonga just smash the airwaves as much as, say, a brilliant saxophone line from Jamie Ferguson on the newest Catch a Fire album. You know, I would love all of those things to shine. But the normalization of it isn't necessary. Rather, the practice of it first. You know, no doubt that the more practitioners there are at all age levels, with the courageousness of, you know, the tipuna that we had lay the foundations, I think taonga pūoro will be all right. But I hope that that's kind of the next growth phase, is to grow the practitioners, because they are also the practitioners are not only the people who play, but the people who make. And one cool experience I'd love to share with you, I did a show up in Auckland, and after the show, a beautiful, lovely lady came up to me with the wing bone of the black petrel. Petrel, the Maori name is the taiko, manu taiko. She came up to me and she said, "Here, this is for you. I just wanted you to have this." And I looked down and I thought, you made this, and I bet you can play it. And I actually don't know many people who have this ability. Yeah, and so the practitioners, man, they're a huge part of taonga pūoro's growth and whether it's going to flourish.